Then I think I managed to get it. So the other one, something not so okay. The password is not working.
We are so excited, so that we try to live stream on YouTube.
Oh really? Oh okay. Right.
Because lots of our students wants to eager to learn from you. Yeah.
Okay. You are somewhere outside, Dr. Susie?
Yeah, I have a meeting in a meeting room, so I have to wear mask.
Oh, okay. That's why I was wondering, why are you with the mask?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So we start at 10:30. I'll come back at 10:30.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Right.
Mahasiswanya baru mau pada masuk.
Bu Hernani, di sini ada mahasiswa Ibu.
Siapa?
Pak Mutakin.
Pak Mutakin? Dari mana Pak Mutakin, lupa?
Mewakili SMP Gemilang.
Oh, ya. Oh gitu, ikutan itu literasi?
Iya, karena yang minggu ini mengundang guru dari 3 sekolah dan mahasiswa dari UPI.
Oh, ya.
Tapi karena kita, kan ini guru SMP, jadi kita minta bantuan IPSI untuk mahasiswanya.
Oh ya. Ibu harus belajar ke Bu Tusi deh.
Kedah nama Ibu kan nuka dia.
Iya. Tadi pertemuan sekolah.
Bu Uci di spot udah masuk nama Bu Uci, jadi kalau mau ngedit apa bisa langsung.
Oh gitu? Iya.
Gunakan soal bisa.
Yeah, Dr. Susi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, your voice is clear here.
Yeah. I just want to know how to share the screen, because my laptop here, when I click the share screen, it's not active.
Well, you are the co-host
already. Sorry, I forgot to turn on the settings. You can try again, Doctor.
How can you explain again? I didn't get.
I forgot to turn on the multiple participant sharing.
Oh,
so
okay.
You can try again.
Okay. It's still not active.
Really? Bu Tusi, perhaps you can try share.
I'm trying actually, but my icon is it's not active. There's nothing happening when I click.
Okay. Me myself can do the share screen here from here.
Kalau misalnya soal tersebut,
Let me try.
cara soal itu dia level kognitifnya yang akan diukur adalah tinggi, penalaran.
Yes.
Itu otomatis kita bisa menggunakan pedoman yang kodenya
Yeah,
lebih
okay.
dari
So
satu.
I think you can
Tapi
see my
kalau
screen,
kayak
ya.
ekonomi,
Yeah, I can see your screen, but
cuman
how to share my screen?
kurang make sense.
That's why I'm not so familiar with Webex. I mean Zoom.
Sama Christopher kemarin. Kita nalar tuh dan pasti pendapat.
Perhaps you can try to restart your computer.
Or restart the computer. So I join back again, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I will leave and then I'll come back.
Or maybe Bu Tusji, if she has any difficulty to share the slide, she can share the file to you, and then you can, how to say, assist her.
Yeah, sure. I can do the option as well. So Dr. Magesnya udah nggak ada ya?
Oh
Ya,
yeah, I see.
Tapi kalau diperlukan saya bisa.
Yeah, that's good.
Angkatan yang sebelumnya ya, semester sebelumnya, ada yang masuk nggak?
Bagusnya anak S1 juga diajak, Bu, kalau memungkinkan.
Iya, lagi full pada kuliah hari Selasa.
Oh, kuliah ya.
Iya.
Di
Yang
kelas
lagi
medlit
penelitian gitu, di fase penelitian skripsi kan bagus.
Di kelas medlit saya juga udah dikasih tahu sih. Ini Ibu Triana atau Ibu Jihan mau jadi moderator ini?
Berbeda-beda gitu ya, berbeda-beda.
Mau mencoba jadi moderator nggak? Kita gantian yuk.
Iya tuh.
Dipaksa untuk ngegejebur. Yuk, mau Bu Triana atau Bu Jihan nih? Iklima atau Iklima?
Nah, Iklima nih.
Iklima juga ada.
Atau ditugasin ganti-ganti.
Ya, nanti kita tugas ganti-ganti ya. Oke, tuh. Ibu Triana udah ngangguk. Jihan masih memantapkan hati.
Saya cek ya.
Ini ada Pak Adam juga nih.
Ada Pak Muzakir tadi mah. Pak Muzakir.
Ada.
Saya cek ya.
Assalamualaikum, Bu Tusi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Kabita sama Bapak. Bapak bener rajin. Di tengah-tengah kesibukan yang bejubel.
Jadi konteksnya nggak bisa.
Supaya ini Bu, supaya nggak bosen. Kalau
Refresh
gitu
ya, Pak, ya?
terus bosen ya.
Refresh, Pak.
Sampai ngisi kuliah aja teh jadi hiburan ya Pak sekarang.
Iya, betul. Refreshing. Ngasih kuliah teh refreshing.
Sabar ya Pak, singsara rehat terus.
Amin. Tuh Pak Mujaknya refreshingnya ngajak nulis buku.
Itu teh refreshing.
Pusing ngurusin macam-macam, Ibu.
Pak Muzakir eta teh ujung-ujungnya mah nggak bisa masuk ke Pendidiktinya.
Itu
Ya.
aduh kemarin ada mahasiswa lapor ke Inspektorat Jenderal Kemenristek Dikti terkait dengan laporan bahwa dia itu sebagai mahasiswa UPI tidak dimungkinkan untuk mendapatkan keringanan.
Dr. Susi, I still cannot share the screen.
So you can found the share screen button.
I can see the share screen button, but then it's not working. I cannot click.
Oh, okay.
It's like inactive.
All right.
Right.
Well, actually, Dr. Mages. Okay, Dr. Mages is now co-host as well. Would you want to try it again, once again?
Let me see whether I can.
Hopefully it works now.
Bapak Ibu tetap sehat, tetap semangat. Titip salam.
Ya, sudah jadi mau itu kan sudah co-host ya.
Bentuknya nasional geografik.
If you still cannot do the share screen, you can send the file to me, and then I will.
Yeah. I think that's the best that I can do. But still it's not good. Let me see.
Just for your information, so yesterday, Dr. Sangitan, also from USM, joined with us through the similar link that we used today. Yeah, and there was no problem, yeah?
Right,
with
right.
the connections, yeah.
I don't know what, maybe something is wrong from my side.
Yeah. Yeah, and here the operator trying to check on the setting just in case, how to say, since maybe you use the account outside of Indonesia, yeah, not with the email account that recognized,
okay.
yeah. We try to identify now.
Right, right.
Yeah. Sorry for this kind of inconvenience.
No, it's okay. I'm not sure whether it's the problem probably would be from my side also as well.
I see.
Right.
I see.
Right. What I can do is I can share the PowerPoint with Dr. Suzy.
Oh yeah. I guess that's the best solution, yeah, so far, to save the time.
Right.
Yeah, I already checked. There isn't limitation to the email, so I don't think there is a problem with the email.
I see. So that sounds good. So it means the system itself not restrict your account, yeah, to join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I give you another email. You might want to use that email to let me in. Probably that email works or what? I'm not sure. It's my personal email because USM email sometimes it's very strict. Would you want to try? So this is my another email.
All right. So I already received.
Yeah, I have shared the PowerPoint with you.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe you can share with your with the participants. Okay, right. I'm going to try once again, Dr. Tuzi. I'm going to go out and come back again, see if it works or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Yeah.
Right.
Bu Her, ini saya share juga linknya ke mana? Ke FMIPA. Jadi mungkin dari biology, dari mana? Ini kan rasanya terkait research methodology in education. Saya kira kan relevan ya. Mungkin di prodi IPA juga supaya impact-nya lebih luas. Jadi sebaiknya mungkin di-share juga, Bu. Untuk yang mengusitnya. Ya.
Dr. Suzy, are you sharing the PowerPoint or I am sharing it?
I'm sharing the PowerPoint, but if you want to try it.
Yeah. Can you like remove it first? Let me try again. So I think I can do it from my side. I think I find I able to solve it.
Okay, I already
Let me try. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's perfect.
Hold on. Let me on my video. Okay, so right, successfully done it. Okay, right. Sorry for the trouble. It's okay. The technology is like that, so I need to get used to it. Okay, so we can start. I suppose, Dr. Suzy. Yeah.
Ya, Ibu Herani mau membuka. Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everyone. Today, in this semester, we have in our research method class for master degree in chemistry education study program. Yeah, we have a special guest, our visiting professor. We have a visiting professor from USM. She is Associate Professor Dr. Mageswary Karpudewan from Faculty of Education, yeah, Dr. Mages?
Yes, yes.
Okay, from Faculty of Education, Universiti Sains, Malaysia. And start from today, she's going to teach us about the research problem in education for 8 meetings. Well, actually, she also will be available for the discussion and for the presentation of the students when they have to present the proposal, yeah, and some of the steps of the proposal making. However, we have 6 students, Bu Herani, 6 or 7 students registered in this.
7 students.
7 students registered in this course, yeah. However, the class
And
is
the other
also open,
participants.
yeah, is also open to the other students who also wants to learn from Dr. Mages. They are really wants to learn about research problem and any kind of research method in education. So they are really glad to have you here. So they will also wants to sit in. Well, I don't think they are also expected to do the same assignment. But no, yeah, Bu Hernani, yeah.
Yes.
So the assignment only for the 7 students. All right. So without further ado, I think I will give the time to Dr. Mages to start the lesson for today. So today's lesson will be about research problem, objective, questions, and hypothesis. Okay. Dr. Mages, the time is
Okay,
yours.
thank you, Dr. Suzy, for the wonderful introduction. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it clear enough?
Yes, it's clear.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So I would like to express my gratitude and very many thanks to the chemistry department, the head of department, as well as Dr. Hernani and Dr. Suzy for actually reaching me out, and then also giving me an opportunity to share some knowledge that I have in a research method with the group of students from Universiti Pendidikan, Indonesia. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity given. I'm very grateful. So I hope that by end of this lecture, all the participants would be able to grasp the knowledge on what is research problem, how objectives are derived from research problem, how questions and hypotheses are derived from the research problem. So if we see carefully, research problem is the fundamental for any research that any educational research. Okay, so always we will begin from research problem. Okay, so that's why I requested Dr. Suzy and Dr. Hernani to allow me to start with the research problem. Okay, right. So before I start the lecture or the session, firstly, I would like to apologize for the technical issue that we have encountered, slightly delayed our presentation. And maybe it's the fault is on my side because I'm not very familiar with Zoom in USM, and over here everybody uses WebEx, so we are very familiar with WebEx. And somehow I'm working from home. I'm not in USM. I'm in a different state. Actually, I'm in Kedah. So USM is in Penang. So I have to cross over to the Penang state to go to work. But now I'm in Kedah, so I don't have access to anything. It's all my own, right? So probably my knowledge on this technical part is not so good. I would say I'm very poor. Okay, right. So I will begin the lecture, and I will probably will the best way, I think, with the permission, Dr. Suzy and Enani, after research problem, I will give some time for you to ask questions. So maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we can allocate some time for you all to ask questions. Then after the question and answer session, I will continue with what you call that, how to come up with objective. And probably we can give you another few minutes for you to see whether you can apply what I say in your context or not. So that means when I give you an example of a research objective, you might be able to apply in your own research context, and you try to come up with your own objective. Okay, then after that we go to the research question. So from the objective, how can you come up with the research question, and finally the hypothesis. Okay, right. So let me begin with educational research in general. So what is educational research? Okay, right. So educational research, it's about applying scientific method to educational problems. Okay, we want to we have a problem, we want to solve the problem. Okay, so we have a problem, we want to solve the problem. So how are we going to solve the problem? We cannot simply simply say, okay, I have a problem, so I'm going to do randomly. I'm going to conduct a kind of teaching. Then after that, I'm going to see whether the teaching is effective or not. So let's say I have a problem. My students are not good in science subject. So my students, I as a teacher, when I go to the classroom, I find that my students like not so interested in science. The moment I start talking in my classroom in science lesson, during the science lesson, they seems to feel sleepy. They lie down on the table, on the desk. So I feel like less motivated to conduct the teaching. So I see there's a kind of problem there. So now I need to solve the problem. So what would be the best way to solve the problem? So as a teacher, you cannot simply say, okay, my problem is students are less motivated. That makes myself less motivated to teach them. So I need to do something to motivate the student. So generally what you will do, okay, now I think something wrong with the way I teach. I will change the teaching method. Okay, I will use another improvised method. I want to use some games. I want to use like a 3D visualization and all these things to improve my students' motivation. So what you will do? Okay, I do the teaching. I simply bring some kind of 3D visualization or some kind of game, and then I want to see the students are motivated now. This is what you call that is a kind of solution that teachers will do without looking at the scientific method. It is an ordinary way of solving problem. But then when we come to educational research, when you have a problem, you need to follow some specific steps, some specific steps in order to solve the problem. So these steps, when you follow these steps, it is called that you are applying scientific approach. You are using scientific method to address the problem. Okay, to address the problem. So why are you using the scientific method? The scientific method is used to measure the effectiveness. That means you introduce a game. For example, you want to measure how effective is my game approach. Or you feel like the students are not motivated. What could be the reason they are not motivated? Is it because they come to school without having breakfast? They feel tired, they feel sleepy, you know? Or is it because they are not having enough sleep the night before coming to the next day at the classroom? So you want to predict, you want to know what is the possible reason. Or is it because my teaching is not appropriate? My method is so boring, so teacher-centered. So I feel like, you know, this could be the reason. So you want to decide what is the main reason that actually contributes for the students being less motivated. Okay, right. So in order to predict, you use scientific method. So in order to measure the effectiveness of your treatment, you use scientific method. Okay, right. So that is educational research. So educational research is about using scientific approach to solve the problem. So what is this scientific approach? Now, scientific approach is, the first steps of scientific approach is to identify problem. Okay, so you only can begin your research when you have a problem. If you don't have a problem, why are you doing a research? Okay, when you have identified your problem, that problem will inform, okay, it will inform you the type of objective that you can formulate. You know, the kind of research question that you can propose. And what is the hypothesis that you can derive? You know, so first thing, you need to have a problem. So once you have your problem, you formulate objective, you formulate hypothesis, you formulate research question. Research question, objective, hypothesis will guide, okay, will guide you, will narrow down your focus. Once you have your research problem, you don't know what to do. Okay, I have a research problem now. I want to know whether my method is effective or not. That is your problem. But then you don't know what to do, how to do, you know. So you might think about coming up with a research objective to identify the effectiveness of my method, to identify, to measure. Then after that, you come up with the research question. What is the effectiveness, or how effective is my method? You know, then you come up with the hypothesis. The method is effective because past study says so. So once you have already very clear about this hypothesis, research question, and objective, that will further narrow down to the type of data that you need to collect. Do you need to collect on the motivation? Do you need to collect the data on achievement or understanding? Or do you need the data on attitude? You know, the kind of data is necessary. So are you going to use a questionnaire, or are you going to use an interview method, or are you going to do an observation, or are you going to do a document analysis? All these things will be guided by the hypothesis, research question, and objective. That's why I always stress on the formulation of these three aspects in research. Before we can talk about collection of data, we talk about analysis, data analysis, and stating conclusion. Okay, so we will begin with the identifying problem today's lecture, and some from the problem, how we can go into the hypothesis or research question and objective. Okay, I hope I'm clear. So this is the objective of today's lesson. So end of the day, you should be able to write your own research problem after this lecture. Okay, so you should get the idea how to write a research problem. Then from the research problem, you should be able to identify your own objective of your own research. I presume that all of you, you have some ideas on what kind of research you're going to do. You know, what are the problems as a teacher or as a science educator you are going through in your everyday life as a teacher, you know, right? Now, so I actually prepared these PowerPoint slides because based on my earlier discussion with Dr. Suzy and Henani, they're supposed to be science students, but it's okay if it's disseminated to a wider audience. I'm very happy if everybody get benefited by my presentation. So you might see some of these my slides will be very focused on science. So if you are not in science, it's exactly the same. The only difference is the context. That's all. Okay, you can apply in your own context: chemistry, physics, biology, or any other field outside the science. Okay, right. Now, basically, in your thesis, okay, in your thesis, I'm focusing on the proposal section. Okay, proposal section. You will have 3 chapters. Okay, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So this is research method, right? So I try to focus on the proposal. Then after that, probably we can go on the data analysis, the next upcoming lectures. So in the introduction, in the chapter 1, so these are some information that is needed, you know, but this information changes according to institutes. So in USM, probably this is our structure, but in UP, I'm not sure what is the structure, but this is the gist. You know, it cannot go far from here. Okay, whatever it is in your chapter 1, you need to have your problem statement. You need to have your objective, you need to have your research question, you need to have your hypothesis. All that comes under the chapter 1. In the chapter 2, you will have literature review, right? The writing of literature review must be coherent, okay? Must be coherent or parallel with your problem statement. If your problem statement is not clear, your objective won't be clear, your hypothesis won't be clear, your research question won't be clear. Subsequently, your literature review won't be clear. Okay, so the second chapter involves literature review, theoretical framework, or conceptual framework. You might be thinking about presenting theoretical framework in chapter 1 or 2. Chapter 1, it's okay, no problem. You know. Then the chapter 3 talks about the research design, sampling, instrument, treatment, data analysis, and pilot study. You know, this is the what we call that, the main framework for preparing a proposal. Okay, right. So after the research problem, you should be narrowed on objective, research question, and hypothesis. So our the flow of today's session will go in this way, right? Now, what is research problem? Okay, what is research problem? Always remember, a research problem is a problem that can be researchable. You know, my experience supervising many students, educational students, and also I'm teaching research method course in USM for about 9 years. I always encounter students proposing research problems which are not researchable. You know, they will propose a problem which are not researchable. No, what is the difference between the problems which are researchable and which are not researchable? You must be very clear on that. Okay, so researchable problems, always you can identify variables. Later I will talk about variables, you know. So researchable problems are problems where easily you can detect the variables. If in that problem you cannot identify what are the variables, you might probably encounter issues. How am I going to research on this problem? You know, for example, now let's say your students are not concentrating in your lecture, in your class. You are teaching in the classroom. You find that the students are not concentrating. So I use the word concentrating. You know, you feel like they're talking to their friends, some of them lying on the bed, on the table, some of them writing something on the book, you know. So all these issues are happening in your classroom. So you know, the problem is, you know, they are not concentrating. But you do not know what is the reason they are not concentrating. You know, as a teacher, you know there is a problem, but you do not know what is the reason they are not concentrating. So initially what you will be thinking, oh, okay, I think they are lack of motivation. Oh, I think they don't have the attitude, they're having some attitude problem. Or there might be some socio-economic issues at home which they brought to the classroom. You know, or they don't like science, they're not interested in learning science or chemistry. Or for them science is very, very difficult. It's just they are very interested to learn science, but it is so difficult. The concepts are so difficult for them to understand. So end of the day, you do the teaching in front, the students will be doing their work at the back. You know, so many possible reasons why they are not concentrating in the classroom. Right? So you don't know what is the reason. But you as an educator, you want to solve the problem. Okay? So what you will be doing? Okay, now you will fall back on the literature. You will go back to literature. You will go and read. What are the reasons for students not concentrating during the teaching? So you might read somebody's work, or you might also talk to your colleague, another friend. My students are not concentrating. Are you facing the same issues with your student? You might do some discussion, you know, or you might go to your principal or head of department to get some ideas. Why my students are like this? You know, finally, from the discussion, from the literature review, from your own observation, you might be able to decide, oh, my students are not concentrating because they are lack of motivation. You know, they are lacking motivation. So you already find out that motivation is the reason. So now you need to do something to improve the motivation. Okay, so these are problems which are researchable. You see, very clear. You don't know, you can see your students having they are not confident. They are not concentrating in the classroom. Then you want to find out what is the reason from reading literature, from talking to your friends, getting info from the head of department, and then many other sources. You identify that, oh, motivation is the reason, is a reason why my students are not concentrating in my classroom. So what I need to do is, I need to do something to improvise the motivation. It can be either you change the teaching approach, you want to use something very is so interesting for the students to improvise the motivation. Or you feel like, oh, I'm not going to talk, I'm going to do something, I'm going to give them activity, you know. So you're going to change your teaching approach. So this is kind of research problems which are researchable. You know, what are the problems which are not researchable? Okay, what are the problems which are not researchable? You know, the problems that are not researchable is like you realize that students are coming to the classroom. Okay, let's say we look at the primary school context. Okay, primary school context. Students coming to the classroom, what you will need to do is you will ask them to make a line in front of the classroom before entering to the class. So they are in a straight line, you know. But you see, some students, they just simply cannot stand in a line. Some will go out of the line, you know. Some will be, you know, purposely they will make the line not in a straight manner, you know. So this is also a problem, you know. But this kind of problem is a problem that you can't research. You can't conduct a research to solve the problem. Compared to the problem just now, where I said that the students having, they are not concentrating. So you as a teacher, you want to play the role, you want to solve the problem. Okay, so they are just cannot stand in the straight line. They have to do something. They will disturb the other friends. You know, these are the problems that you as a teacher, you feel like you want to do something. You want to know more why they are not doing. Cannot. I mean, they are unable to stand in the straight line. So, but then these problems are the problems that probably cannot be researched compared to the problem that I have mentioned earlier. So I hope you understand the difference between researchable and non-researchable problem. Okay, right. So let's say you already identified the problem. So now we need to write the problem. We need to clearly write the problem so that a person who reads your thesis or a person who reads your article would be able to understand your problem statement very clearly, right? So now how to write a problem? In writing problem, there are many ways of writing problem. So one of the prominent way of writing problem is using the 5 elements proposed by Crashwell. Okay, we fall back on Crashwell's work. Most of my references would be from Crashwell. I actually follow his work very closely, and I adapt many of his ideas in my research. Okay, right. So the first step in your problem identifying of problem statement would be the topic. Okay, the first step is topic. So what is topic? I will go deeper on how to go in topic, and also I will include some examples. Okay, I will include some examples. Now, once you identify the topic or the subject area, okay, topic or subject area, I would say like just now the motivation, concentration. Student cannot concentrate because lack of motivation. So that is subject area ataupun topic. You know, it's a topic. What is the educational issue here? The educational issue is they need a solution. So if motivation is a problem, you need to find solution to solve the motivation, right? So that is the educational issue. Okay, then evidence for the issue, you get it from the literature or some practical experiences. Just now I said, right, You can talk to your friends, you can talk to your higher authorities, you can talk to maybe in your school you have some teachers with 20 or 30 years of experience teaching students. You know, you are an early comer, so you want to know how my seniors actually handle this problem, you know. And then after that, what is the lacking? For example, let's say in the literature, the past studies shows that there is an approach. That approach is known as inquiry lab, for example. Okay, inquiry lab. So the literature says inquiry lab can improve students' motivation. The inquiry lab can improve students' motivation. Then, as the person who reads your work, okay, or evaluator, I might be thinking, okay, if inquiry lab is already there, you can use whatever it is in the literature, try it in your Indonesian classroom, and then you can measure the effectiveness. You know, you can see whether your motivation, students' motivation can improve or not. You can do that. But then that inquiry lab was prepared for a specific country. That inquiry lab suits that context, the context where the lab is prepared. Probably it is not appropriate for Indonesia. See, there is a deficiency, you know. So what you need to do, you need to create, or you need to develop your own inquiry lab to address the issue of your student. Okay, I will go deeper on this later. One by one, I will go. Then, the target group or the target audience of your problem. Who is the target audience of your problem? So it can be the student, the teacher, the policymaker, or somebody, some researchers who want to adapt your study, right? So this is the audience, right? So in your problem statement, when you have a problem in your mind, the first thing that you need to do is you have to make these 5 elements very clear. You should be able to think for yourself. Okay, what is my subject area? What is the issue? What is the evidence? What is the deficiency in the literature? And who am I catering the problem to? You know, so these are the 5 elements. Now, we go to the topic sentence. Okay, topic. Okay. Topic is a opening statement of a problem. Okay, it's the opening statement of a problem. Okay, right. So sometimes Creswell used the term narrative hook. Okay, Creswell used the term narrative hook. Dr. Suzy, am I the language I use, the students can understand? Ataupun you want me to speak in Bahasa Malaysia, I can speak in Bahasa Malaysia also.
Alright, I can ask the student. So, apakah bisa difahami sampai sejauh ini, mahasiswa semua?
Bisa, Bu, sejauh ini masih bisa.
Masih bisa? Atau ada yang bisa, Ibu? Bisa ya, masih bisa. I think your English is quite understandable to the students. So,
okay, that will be good. Okay, right. Okay. Okay. So the first element of Creswell's problem statement is topic. Okay. So topic is an opening statement of your problem. Okay. So you see, when we read your thesis as a panel, as an examiner, when if I evaluate your thesis, the first thing that I will read is your problem statement. I want to know whether you are doing the right thing or not. Are you doing something very contemporary, very recent, or are you doing some outdated stuff? or your research is interesting or not interesting. What determines is the problem statement. Okay, so the first thing I will flip to the problem statement. I want to read what is your problem statement, right? So the opening sentence of your problem statement, topic is the opening sentence of your problem statement. So you need to write in a way that when I read the first sentence, it interests me so much, I want to know the second sentence. I want to know what more. What are you going to do? Okay, right. How are you going to write such a sentence? Okay, how are you going to write such a sentence? Right. So in writing the sentence, you can have statistical data, you can include statistical information, you can include question, a clear need for the research, the intent or purpose of the study. Okay, that means you are not going to say this is the purpose of the study, but in the writing, the way you write, it will show, okay, the purpose of the study is as such. Okay, like now, for example, okay, I want to do a research on electrochemistry. Okay, I want to see, I want to improve students' understanding in electrochemistry. Okay, so my research is on, I want to improve students' understanding on electrochemistry, right? So if you see here, I need to have an opening opening sentence for my problem. So how am I going to write a problem, the opening sentence? So I hope you understand. My problem is my students are having a poor understanding in electrochemistry or electrolysis. So now I'm going to revise that. I'm going to help them to improve their understanding, right? So school science teaching and learning primarily focus on students' mastering of science concept. So what am I saying here? I'm saying that currently we just focus on, we want to make sure everybody must master the concept. The aim of the teaching and learning of science is to make sure students master the concept. So science teaching in school frequently aims at assisting students in experiencing. So when you want to teach about mastering concepts, okay, you want to make sure everybody master the concept. You just want to use a teaching strategy to ensure everybody get the right concept. But unfortunately, when you use that kind of teaching, students experience misconception. Students experience misconception. So you want to show that they experience misconception. Studies on misconception reveal that 50% of the time students developed misconception from the less effective strategy, or the strategy failed to remove the misconception. So I'm using statistical data. You understand? So I started with showing something very general, mastering science concept. And for mastering the science concept, teachers always tend to use an appropriate teaching strategy. Okay, they try to use the best teaching strategy. But despite using all this strategy, students still have misconception. So I need to prove. Studies on misconception reveal 50% of the time students develop misconception from less effective strategy. Okay, or the strategy failed to remove the misconception. Misconception, actually, it's not from the classroom also. Before they come and join the classroom itself, they already have misconception. So the strategy used by the teachers unable to remove the existing strategy, misconception also. So it retained the misconception, it unable to remove the misconception. Then I narrow down. Electrochemistry is one of the scientific concepts that students frequently develop misconception. So I need to have a reference here. I cannot simply write. So what would be an effective strategy that could reduce students' misconception on electrochemistry? So you see here, the topic sentence has actually narrowed to the problem. It started from something which is very general, and then it already narrowed to the problem. So how to write a topic sentence? These are the keywords. You can include statistical data, which I have mentioned here. 50% of time students develop misconception. This is the statistical data. Proactive question. Okay, what would be, and this is the proactive question. A clear need for research. This is also a clear need for this kind of research. Okay, so the intent or purpose of the study. So if you see here, the problem statement should start on the topic sentence, which gives a direction of what is the problem that you want to research. This is only an example. Actually, you can expand further. Okay, you can include more reference. You can give more justification why electrochemistry students carry misconception. Very commonly, students carry misconception. So you can elaborate on this part. Okay, right. So I'm done with the first element, which is the topic sentence. Okay, I'm going to the second element, which is the research problem or research issue. Right. Give me a second. Give me a second. I think I will change my PowerPoint. I think I shared with you another. I have an improvised PowerPoint. I will share that PowerPoint. Hold on. You just give me a second. Okay, I think I'm back. Hold on. Okay, right. So once your topic is clear, now you want to narrow to the problem. Okay, you need to narrow to the problem. So we go back to the 5 elements. First is the topic. Okay, the topic. From the topic example that I give you, it is very clear. It is on electrochemistry. It is on misconception, and you are proposing a kind of teaching approach. It's not sure what we're going to do. Okay, we are proposing a new kind of teaching approach from the topic sentence. I hope you get this idea. You know, you already from the topic sentence, the example I give you, you know, you are working on misconception. You know, you are working on the electrochemistry. Actually, I did some changes, so now I'm sharing with you the correct slide. So you are working on electrolysis, and you are proposing a kind of laboratory activities that are necessary for understanding electrolysis. I hope you get this idea, these 3 things. So from the topic sentence, we got the idea that you're working on the electrolysis, you're working on the new teaching approach, and you're working on the understanding. So these are the 3 things. So the topic sentence have clearly narrowed to the research problem. Okay, so after knowing the topic sentence, the next one is the research problem. Okay, so what do you need to write in the research problem? So the topic is narrowed to a specific problem. A single sentence or few sentences. I would encourage you to write in few sentences. Practical research problem. research-based research problem. There are two kinds of problem here. One is practical, another one is research-based, or combination of both. I will explain to you what is this. Right. So in the topic sentence, you already mentioned electrolysis is the problem, and you want to introduce a new teaching approach, and understanding is the issue. Okay. Now, you need to go deeper. You need to highlight the problem. So the highlight of the problem is, in the electrolysis, what is the issue actually? You know, electrolysis is a general topic. So what is the issue in electrolysis? So you would say that to understand the electroplating of metals, students need to grasp the fundamental knowledge of the movement of electrons from the cathode to anode and electrochemical series. So this is the focus of the problem, narrow. So electrolysis is a very general problem, but when you write the research problem, you go deeper. So what in the electrolysis? So in the electrolysis, to understand electroplating of metals, students need to grasp the fundamental knowledge of the movement of electrons from the cathode to anode and electrochemical series. So you need to know the electrochemical series. Then you need to know how electroplating happens. What are the half equation? What are the full equation? Where the electrons are donated? Where the electrons are accepted? How the movement of electron happens? All this is not, in order to understand electrolysis, you need to know this. So teachers frequently engage students in hands-on laboratory activities for this purpose. So what happened in the classroom? Teachers frequently engage students. That means that in your teaching, you use classroom, you use laboratory activities. So when you do laboratory activities, what happens? Student will understand, okay, today I teach about electrochemical series. So the students will know electrochemical series. Tomorrow, the next week in my chemistry lesson, I talk about movement of electrons. It moves from the anode to cathode. You know, so what happens is, in your teaching, the electrochemical series, students would not be able to connect the series with movement of electron in the electrolysis process. That means they would not be able to know that the electron is discharged when it is located at the higher position of the series. You know, so they are, it looks like two different lessons. So they are unable to connect the information. So because they are unable to connect the information, they have problem to understand electrolysis. So this is the practical problem in your context. Okay. Students ignore the connection between movement of electron and any electrochemical series. In order for you to understand electroplating of metal, you need to know movement of electron and electrochemical series. But then when the teacher teach in two different classes without connecting them, they would not be able to apply the knowledge to understand the electroplating of metal. So that is the reason why they have problem to understand electroplating of metal. Okay, so although many people, many science educators have suggested many ways to address this issue, you know, you are not the first one to do this research. You know, people have investigated electrolysis for many years. So always remember, we are not the first one. So although many people have done research on this, but still the problem persists. Still there are students, especially my students, they have problem to understand electrolysis. Can you get what I'm saying? I hope you can get what I'm saying. So from the first topic, which is electrolysis, understanding, and need for the teaching approach, I narrowed to the second element, which is the research problem. So in this research problem, I highlighted what in the electrolysis that is actually a problem. Okay, for example, electroplating of the metal. In order to understand electroplating of the metal, students need to know the fundamental knowledge of the movement of electrons and also electrochemical series. But then in my context, in my teaching, what happened is, first week we talk about movement of electron. Second week we talk about electrochemical series. Or you talk about electrochemical series first, then you teach about movement and electron. So what happens? Student cannot connect. But connecting these two knowledge is the fundamental for understanding electroplating of metal. So this is a problem. So this is a practical problem. Yeah, you have find a practical problem. Issues found in your setting. So you found this kind of issue. So what is the research problem? The research problem is, although advocate of science education, many people have researched on electrolysis. You know, many studies have done on electrolysis. But then there is still issues with student understanding electrolysis. Okay, so you can see here, this is the second element of highlighting the research problem, very specific. You know, so the first topic sentence leads you to the second element, which is the research issue or research problem, they call it. So in this research problem, we have practical research problem, which is the problem that you as a teacher that you encounter, and the research-based problem, what research says. So this is, although advocates have introduced many approaches, but misconceptions still persist. Misconceptions still prevalent. So you as a teacher, you need to do something. Okay, I hope you understand. We go to the third element. Third element is justification. Okay, so now you already give the topic, you already highlight the research problem. Now you need to give the justification. You need to justify. You see, without giving a justification, the problem might be your own problem. Okay, your own problem. Why do I need to know your problem? Okay, but you are giving the justification so that your problem is so important. Okay, your problem is so important that any chemistry teachers or any chemistry educator might be having the same problem. So solution to your problem is so important that when other chemistry teachers or chemistry educators will benefit from your research. So in order for you to ascertain that, you need to give a strong justification for your problem. Okay, so from how can you justify the problem? So your justification can be your own experience, your experience from the school or other schools, and also maybe in your own country. You know, probably there is a study done in Jawa Barat, let's say. You know, so a study done in Jawa Barat, it shows that, oh, the students in Jawa Barat is having problem with the electrolysis. Then another study done in Jawa Tengah, oh, student also having problem with what you call that, understanding electrolysis. So the problem that I'm having in my school, that student having problem is having electrolysis, looks like throughout Indonesia there is a problem. You understand what I'm saying? So you justify, you give a concrete evidence, concrete argument for the problem. You know, like let's say I'm doing a research on electrolysis. Oh, my students have problem in electrolysis, but I need to give a concrete argument. Oh, the problem is not only with my student from Penang, but my students in different state, in JB or in Kedah or in Kuala Lumpur or in many parts of Malaysia also having same problem. Not only that, students from different part of the world, maybe Indonesia or maybe from UK or maybe from US, also having same problem. Because they also lacking the understanding of electrolysis. So you give justification, you give concrete argument about your problem. So in this case, like now our issue is electrolysis. Our issue is we need a treatment. You know, we need a treatment or we need a teaching strategy to improvise students' understanding of electrolysis. Now you see here, a study conducted with 330 Form 4 students displayed. This is a concrete evidence saying that students in Malaysia are having problem with electrolysis. And this study is done by Sia et al. 2012. So whatever I experience in my classroom is justified by Sia. Did you understand? Right. Ghani et al. 2017 also performed study on electrolysis. Okay, Ghani also said that, oh, Malaysian students are having problem with electrolysis. Chandrasekharan et al. 2007 with Regas also did a study. They also say Malaysian students are having problem in understanding misconception. Electrolysis. Okay, Tabor and Bong and Lee. Okay, they said laboratory activity that the student conduct during electrolysis lesson is not efficient to improve their understanding. I hope you are getting. So this is the justification. It's very important. So I justified my problem. As a teacher, I'm facing problem. My problem is justified by Sia's work, which is conducted in 2012, and Ghani et al. 2017, and Chandrasekharan 27. And then I also saying that Tabor 2013 and Bong and Lee 2016 said that the current laboratory, the way electrolysis is taught using laboratory activities is not so appropriate. It is not so good. It is not sufficient. It is not effective in improving the understanding. Okay, it's not effective in improving the understanding. So this is the information that I got from Tabor, Bong and Lee. Now, why do I talk about laboratory activity? Because if you see here in my topic sentence or in the topic sentence, I would have said what kind of laboratory activities are necessary for effectively improve understanding of electrolysis. And in the research problem, I said that there are many methods, but then the misconception is still lack of understanding is still persistent. So that is the reason that I go into research more specific on the laboratory. Okay, right. So if you see here, I have given you an elaboration of the research problem. Okay, the elaboration of the research problem. You see, the current electrolysis laboratory activity place emphasis on handling equipment and all that. Low learning demand activities explain poor understanding of electrolysis. So this is the justification. Then I said that the heavy emphasis on laboratory on manipulating physical objects. You know, I said the existing laboratory is not so good. This is the reason. Then I'm suggesting integrating the 4 STEM discipline within the laboratory activities is a good way to teach electrolysis. So I have already suggested. Okay, so from the topic, we go to the problem and we come to the justification. I hope you can follow that, right? Next, after the justification is the deficiency. So what we know and what we think we need to bridge or to bridge the gap. Okay, there is a gap there. We want to do something to bridge the gap. So now you must understand very well. Our problem is electrolysis. Our problem is the current the laboratory activities are not so good. We need to improvise. Not so good. It means that the current laboratory activities do not provide high demand learning. The current activities are mostly low demand learning. That means students follow recipe-like procedure, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3 in the lab. So that's called low demand. But in our we are looking for high demand activity where the student can think, come up with their own experiment, solve the real world problem. You know, that's called that's high demand. So now what is the gap is the laboratory activities is not so good. We need to give more high demand lab activities. We have to have in order to improve what you call that understanding on electrolysis. Okay, so now we need to give what are the deficiency. Okay, what are the deficiency ataupun kekurangan? What are the deficiency? So Xia et al. Just now I said, I referred to Xia et al. Here. Xia said majority of the students, Form 4 students who learn identified with having problem in understanding electrolysis, right? So in this section, I'm saying that Xia detected students' understanding. He used the survey. In the finding, he suggested the study has an implication on classroom teaching. That means the study narrowed further, saying there is a need for improvise the classroom teaching. Then Ghani et al., he said, okay, improvise the classroom teaching, okay. What we did was, we improvised the teaching, we used concept mapping with the intention to improve higher order thinking skill. Okay, they did the improvisation, but then still it is not appropriate. You know, Utley and Nagel, they say that laboratory activity is used to teach electrolysis is low demanding. So that could be the reason why students are having lack of understanding in electrolysis. So Utley said that. Nagel said that. Z said that. But there is no evidence of study using STEM lab. Okay, there is no evidence of study using STEM lab. That means there is nobody so far in the literature used STEM laboratory activities integrated with STEM to teach the lessons on electrolysis. So you see, I started from Xia and I narrowed to the lab, STEM lab. So the problem is, I highlighted lack of understanding, transdisciplinary teaching is needed. So one of the best approach is STEM lab. Until here, okay?
Bagaimana mahasiswa? Silakan. Dr. Mages, would you mind to open the question? So anytime the students have a question, they can raise a hand and ask a question, or we should.
Yeah, I got one more element. After that element, I'll stop. So we can open for the question. Okay, I just want to make sure they know what I'm talking. If not, I feel like I'm talking to the people.
Ya, cukup jelas ya mahasiswa ya. Oke ya.
Okay, so these are the deficiency. Deficiency bermaksud kekurangan ataupun apa gap dia, the gaps, So once you identify the gap, you need to clearly explain what are the gaps. So the first gap is Sia said survey. It is only a survey. He said, oh, Malaysian students have problem in understanding electrolysis. And in the survey, he suggested there is the implication on classroom teaching of electrolysis. Okay. Then Gani, okay, since there is a need of follow up from Sia pergi kepada Gani. Gani said, okay, since a new teaching is required, we are using HOTS, concept mapping. Okay, we are using concept mapping to conduct the lesson on electrolysis, right? But then it is not still effective. But Atlee, Nagel, and Z said that the current laboratory activities for using for teaching electrolysis is not. It involves low demanding learning. For that reason, probably students unable to understand electrolysis. So one way to teach introduce high demand learning laboratory activities is using STEM lab. But so far, there is no evidence of any study using STEM lab. So you already highlight the deficiency. Okay. Now, next element is the audience. So this would be your last paragraph of the problem statement. So you need to tell in this paragraph, you need to tell how the study or the problem, when you find solution for this problem, the researchers will benefit, the other researchers, the practitioners will benefit, it can be teachers, the policy makers will benefit, or how the students who are participating in the study will benefit. So I just took few examples. Teachers are not trained to conduct high demand learning. We always try to do recipe like laboratory activities. We follow recipe like procedure to conduct laboratory activities. So teachers are not trained to conduct high demand learning activities. So the STEM lab that you're going to introduce through this research will solve the problem on teachers not trained. Policy makers, everybody talking about embedding STEM. We want to have an integrated STEM teaching in the school. STEM is so important. People are talking. But what's the problem with STEM? The problem is when you want to have STEM, what happens is always we have STEM teaching outside the curriculum, after school curriculum. It can be a project based, it can be what you call that, STEM carnival, it can be all the activities are outside the school. After you finish your formal schooling, you go and join a STEM carnival, 2 days, 3 days STEM carnival, or you go and do STEM competition, international STEM competition, where the competition is conducted 2 or 3 days or few weeks. There's nothing like embedded within your within the timetable, within the topic that you teach in the school. So when we introduce the STEM lab, it is a kind of activity where the teachers can do it while they're teaching electrolysis. Okay, so it overcomes the problems, or it overcomes the problem of introducing new curriculum, but embedding STEM in the curriculum, existing curriculum for policymakers. For individuals, for the students who are participating, they always find, we always learn about science, but we don't know how to apply science in solving industrial problems like electroplating. So this kind of STEM lab, it makes the learning transdisciplinary. So it's not only about learning about electroplating of metal, but students get to know how to solve the problem related to electroplating of metals. So this will be your 5th paragraph. So writing the problem statement, let me go through again. You need to go from the subject area, topic, educational issue, evidence, deficiency, and the audience. And I have gone through each and every aspect of the writing. So topic, we are talking about the introduction, opening sentence, narrative hook. This is the phrase used by Creswell. Okay, it must something attract the reader, it must something interest the person who reads, the problem must be timely, it must be contemporary. You know, you don't go and do some problem which is already outdated, nobody wants to know. Okay, now how you going to write? You can have statistical data. I give you an example, a proactive question, a clear need for a research, or intent or purpose of this study. So if you read here, you will, this paragraph already give the idea of what are you going to research on. Then a research problem, go deeper on it. Then justification, deficiencies, audience. Okay, so I'll give a few minutes, maybe I can stop here for questions if you have. I'll be very happy to answer your questions.
Alright, thank you very much Dr. Mages. Oke, mahasiswa, Bapak Ibu dosen juga diperkenankan. Oh ya, Dr. Mages. Well, actually we are not only have our colleagues and as well as our professor. We have Professor Nuryani in our Zoom room. She's from Biology Education Department. Profesor Nuryani, selamat datang. Selamat bergabung.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yes, Professor Nuryani, nice to meet you.
Just call me Nur.
Oh, Prof Nur.
Oh, Prof Nur. Okay, okay.
Yeah, we used to call her Prof Nur. Yeah, we also have Pak Ahmad Muzakir and Ibu Fitri Khairunisa, Ibu Sri Mulyani as well. Ibu Sri Mulyani, yeah, she's our study program. Yeah.
Right.
Oke, ya, oke, mahasiswa silakan jika ada pertanyaan. Untuk memperjelas ya, tadi kita sudah belajar mengenai research problem, bagaimana merumuskannya, mulai dari topik, gitu ya. Kita tentukan topiknya, lalu kemudian narrowing down permasalahannya apa, dan juga justification-nya seperti apa. Justification could it be like similar with how make it rational, ya, rationalization. And also deficiencies, as what Dr. Mages says, that the filling the gap, ya, how our research will fill the gap, dan apa gap yang terjadi seperti itu. Kita harus bisa menunjukkan itu. Silakan. Apakah sudah ada pertanyaan? Jihan, ada pertanyaan Jihan? Oh ya, untuk pertanyaan sebetulnya bisa disampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia karena pada dasarnya Dr. Mages ini memang bisa berbahasa Melayu juga gitu dan sangat bagus juga bahasa Melayunya. Jadi kalau mau bertanya pakai bahasa Indonesia juga beliau insya Allah akan memahami ya. Silakan. Belum ada pertanyaan sampai sejauh ini?
Ini ada beberapa mahasiswa yang sedang mau seminar proposal nih.
Ya, yang sudah mau seminar proposal silahkan memastikan. Mungkin sudah mulai buat drafting ya. Bisa mengkonsultasikan draftnya atau bagian depannya dulu, tidak draft secara keseluruhan tentunya.
Ataupun ada bagian yang tak difahami, kurang paham. Boleh ditanya, saya coba jelaskan lagi.
Ya, ada bagian tadi yang kurang paham misal? Atau sudah paham semua? Bapak Ibu?
Saya boleh nanya?
Boleh Ibu silakan. Prof. Prof.
Ya
Nur,
gini
silakan.
aja ya, bahasa Indonesia aja biar
Mangga,
mahasiswa juga mendengar ya. Tadi disebutkan bahwa masalah dalam pendidikan itu antara lain motivasi dan apa gitu ya. Nah, jadi motivasi itu diperlukan. Nah, tapi saya pernah juga karena saya mengajar teori belajar, ya menurut Bandura motivasi itu justru adanya di belakang. Ketika seseorang atau sejumlah orang, terutama seseorang sudah merasa berhasil reproduction, dia baru merasa termotivasi gitu. Nah, jadi motivasinya itu justru di belakang gitu. Khususnya menurut Bandura, selain observational learning itu ada satu lagi yang disebut dengan vicarious learning. Nah, itu untuk belajar keterampilan sepertinya cocoknya yang motivasinya di belakang. Ketika dia mencoba dan menggunakan versinya, dia paham, dia lebih mengerti, dan dia berhasil, he or she succeeded in performing something, so dia juga akhirnya akan termotivasi untuk belajar terus. Tetapi kalau setelah mencoba memproduksi ulang, reproduction, itu ternyata dia gagal, dia akan menarik diri gitu. Nah, itu barangkali mohon ada penguatan dari itu penangkapan saya ya melalui teori belajar. Gimana Bu Susi, bisa diinikan?
Ya, baik Dr. Mages. Ya, Prof. Nuryani has interested in motivation aspect of learning. Ya, according to her understanding to Bandura's learning theory, that motivation is a result of learning process. Ya, Prof. Nuryani. Ya.
Yeah. Especially for performance, ya. Yeah. For skills, ya. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for performance or skills, when they already got the lessons and when the student have experience in learning process, they will the process will result in the motivation, will increase their motivation. So she just want to emphasize that motivation is not only supporting the lesson plan, but it's the lesson process, but it also become the variable that will be resulted by the learning process as well.
Ya, so itu yang saya jelaskan. Motivation ini adalah satu variable. So permasalahan, what is the problem? You know, the permasalahan di sini. Pelajar tidak menumpukan perhatian. So cikgu nak tentukan apakah masalah yang menyebabkan pelajar tidak menumpukan perhatian. So boleh jadi ada beberapa punca. Jadi salah satu mungkin sikap pelajar yang tidak berminat, sikap pelajar yang tidak, dia rasa sains ini tidak penting untuk dia belajar, satu. Ataupun pelajar itu mengalami dia sendiri tidak ada motivasi untuk belajar. So dia kekurangan motivasi. Dia kata, mengapa saya perlu belajar sains? Topik-topik seperti elektrolisis, apa kegunaan dia? Lepas saya graduate, lepas saya selesaikan pembelajaran saya dah jadi guru. For what I need to know about electrolysis. So, dia sendiri kurang bermotivasi. So, sebagai cikgu itu tidak dapat tentukan apa punca permasalahan yang pelajar tidak menumpukan perhatian dalam pembelajaran dalam bilik darjah. So, cikgu itu perlu mengenal pasti apa punca dia. So, salah satu punca yang saya bagi satu contoh lah, motivasi, kekurangan motivasi. So, apakah masalah dengan kekurangan motivasi? Apakah menyebabkan dia kekurangan motivasi? So, it's a process. So, mungkin cikgu tu rasa, kalau saya gunakan sesuatu yang lebih menarik, ataupun kalau kita tengok dari self-determined motivation theory, Daisy and Ryan, Dia ada 3 aspek. Dia ada 3 aspek. Satu relevance, another one is competence. So in order for you to improvise the motivation, the teaching, the students must be competent. It must improvise the competency of the student. And then it must also, the lesson must be very relevant, relevant of the student, relevant to the student. Ada 3, saya tak berapa ingat yang satu lagi. One is relevant, another one competence. So the teaching that the teacher use must enable the students experience the relevance, must enable the students to be more competent. And then another one is take responsibility, regulates, take responsibility. Student must take the responsibility of their learning. So kalau kita guna the conventional teaching, teacher-centered, like what I'm doing, we just teach. Where is the relevance? Where is the students taking responsibility of their learning? Regulatory. Where is the competence building? So this is the 3 levels or 3 syarat, kita sebut prasyarat for motivation to take place. So the teaching should be restructured in order students ada lebih competent, students can see the relevance of the teaching, students can take responsibility of their learning. So this is one example. So if you look at attitude pun sama. Kalau attitude kita tengok pada Chung punya, Chung 2011. Chung is a professor from, if I'm not mistaken, is from Hong Kong. So he has given a behavioral attitude. How we can improvise attitude from when you improvise the cognitive presentation of the lesson. When you improvise the affective presentation, a behavioral presentation, so different perspective. So permasalahan kajian, cikgu perlu kenal pasti apa masalahnya dulu. So student tidak menumpukan perhatian. Apa yang menyebabkan dia tidak menumpukan perhatian? Adakah dia kekurangan minat? Adakah dia punya sikap tidak betul? Ataupun dia tidak bermotivasi? Ataupun dia rasa pengajaran sains ini adalah sesuatu yang sangat susah? So guru kena mengenal pasti daripada 4 ini yang mana satu yang paling sesuai untuk student mereka. So bagaimana guru boleh mengenal pasti? Dia akan baca literature. Dia banyak artikel, dia baca research yang orang telah buat. So mungkin ada research yang dibuat di Indonesia bukan dalam konteks guru tersebut, pada bahagian Indonesia yang lain literature tu kata okey, student ni tidak menumpukan perhatian, salah satu sebab adalah mereka kurang bermotivasi. Ataupun ada kajian lain kata, one of the reason why the students are not focusing in my class, in the classroom, is because they are not interested to learn. Okay, so once you already know motivation is the issue, then you see the next step. What should I do to improvise the motivation? So I need to come up with a good teaching. The teaching that I design must have the element of relevance. The teaching that I design must have the element of competence. The teaching that I design must have the opportunity for the students to take responsibility. These are the 3 elements of motivation described by Daisy and Ryan in the self-determination motivation. Contoh dia lah. So if you talk about attitude, you go to Chung. Okay, Chung said, I want to improve attitude, the teaching should be based on behavioral aspect. The teaching should focus on the affective aspect. The teaching should focus on the cognitive aspect. Itu kalau attitude. Chung, very focused on chemistry. But If some other problem, if I feel like my teaching should go through, student must experience conceptual change. Maksudnya dia perlu mengalami perubahan konseptual. Kalau itu adalah masalahnya, kita balik kepada teori perubahan konseptual by Posner et al. 1982. So Posner said, what is the first step? Dissatisfied. Kamu mesti sebagai pelajar, kita mesti rasa tidak puas hati. Something is not right when we are in the classroom. You know, then ada step 2, ada step 3. You know, so step 2, you feel like, oh, the teacher is telling something. I think if I can understand that, I will benefit from that. So this first, dissatisfied, rasa tidak puas hati. The second thing, something rasa ada benefit, ada kepentingan ataupun ada manfaat daripada apa yang cikgu kata. Then bila dia rasa ada manfaat, dia kata dia boleh apply. Okay, fruitfulness, then application. So kalau tengok Posner punya, dia ada 4 tahap. So if you design your lesson, you design your teaching according to Posner's conceptual change theory, katakan 4 peringkat tu, then you might be able to remove your students' misconception and improve understanding. So first of all, you need to know what is the problem. Apa masalah pelajar ini? So motivasi is one example, attitude is another example, lack of understanding is another example. So bila punca sudah dikenal pasti, baru kita boleh cadangkan cara untuk mengatasi dia. Okay, right. So that's what I'm saying in the 5 elements. So these 5 elements that I have introduced is the way how you should write the problem statement. Kalau kamu tak tulis ikut 5 elemen ini, probably as a researcher, diri kamu sendiri faham permasalahan kamu. Tapi orang lain tak tahu. Orang lain bila baca you punya problem statement, probably they wouldn't understand. So they will be asking, like let's say I'm the examiner of your thesis. Saya baca problem statement, I say, so what? So mengapa masalah ini perlu dijalankan satu kajian? Mengapa perlu satu penyelidikan yang begitu detail untuk menyelesaikan masalah ini? You know, so I need to give a concrete argument, justifikasi. Mengapa masalah ini adalah masalah yang sangat penting dan perlu diselesaikan. So dalam usaha saya menyelesaikan masalah ini, bukan diri saya sendiri seorang yang mendapat benefit, orang-orang lain seperti policy makers, cikgu-cikgu yang lain, guru-guru yang lain, rakan yang lain, rakan pelajar yang lain, semuanya boleh mendapat manfaat. Itu yang kita kena bagi satu justification. So kalau pelajar, kalau mereka ikut 5 elemen ini dalam penulisan masalah, mereka tak akan lari. So it's very concretely presented. That's how you should present a problem statement. So next week, bila saya cerita tentang quantitative, then the following week qualitative, bukan? So you will see there will be a slight twist. Kalau quantitative macam mana agaknya? Kalau qualitative macam mana agaknya? Tapi kerangka dia, the framework is like this. Okay, right. So students can ask me any questions. I'm very happy to answer if you have questions. But if you don't understand also, it's okay. You can just let me know. I will try to explain in a way that it is understandable.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mages. We also have 2 questions in our chat box. Let me read the first question. Pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia, dalam analisa artikel ternyata butuh pemahaman tingkat tinggi. So in analyzing the article, we need a deeper understanding, yeah, or higher thinking, deeper understanding to find out the gap in the research. Do you have any tips to find out the gap so that we can get the novelty for our research?
You are reading the question to me, Dr. Suzy?
Oh yeah.
Hold on. I'm reading the chat.
Yeah.
Dalam analisa artikel ternyata buntu pemahaman tingkat tinggi untuk mencari gap dalam penelitian. Mohon bantuan tips dalam menemukan gap sehingga mendapatkan novelty. Okay. Nah, saya cuba jawab soalan ini. You see, bila kita baca artikel, bagaimana anda akan baca artikel? Okay. That's why I say, sebelum kamu baca artikel, you know, you already have something in your mind. Itulah permasalahan kamu, right? Sebagai guru, sebagai practitioner, sebagai researcher, you already have something in your mind to go and research about. You know, apakah penyelidikan yang kamu nak jalankan? You have something. So when you go and read article, when you go and find article, you go and find the articles on articles related to the problem that you already have in your mind. You know, when you do it in that way, you will find that, for example, electrolysis. Permasalahan saya, pelajar menghadapi masalah dalam memahami konsep electrolysis. Okay, but permasalahan ini bukanlah permasalahan macam baru. Semua banyak kajian dah buat. You know, ini bukan satu benda yang baru. Banyak kajian yang telah dilakukan. Di Malaysia pun sudah ada kajian yang menyatakan elektrolisis ini susah. You know, then mengapa saya nak buat kajian ni balik? So apa gap dia? Persoalan dia, apa gap dia? Memang sudah ada banyak kajian. Tetapi walaupun kajian-kajian ini menyatakan permasalahan elektrolisis ini sangat ketara, tidak ada kajian yang setakat ini tidak ada kajian yang specifically menyatakan ataupun specifically mengutarakan satu kaedah yang dapat mengatasi masalah ini. Walaupun ada banyak kaedah telah pun diutarakan, kaedah-kaedah ini masih lagi ada kekurangan. That means you are saying that there are so many approaches people have introduced in the literature. Approach A, inquiry laboratory activity. Even though inquiry laboratory activity has been evident is so good, but inquiry laboratory activity is not implemented in electrolysis. You know, some people say using mapping, you know, you have various kind of mapping. Concept mapping is one of that, but nowadays you got many kinds of mapping. Some people say using mapping would be the best approach, but despite using mapping, there are also a problem. So there are many kinds of approaches introduced. Although these approaches has been effective, but they are not completely effective. They are not fully effective. So electrolysis is a problem. Many studies have done. Many studies also introduced many approaches. But despite all these new approaches, there is a gap. The gap is not all these approaches are 100% effective. Especially when come to my own context. When come to Malaysia or when come to Indonesia. When come to Malaysia, I cannot perform inquiry lab. Why? Because I already have a very strict curriculum. As a teacher, I need to follow. Oh, ini step 1, ini step 2, ini step 3. I cannot do whatever I want to do. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how you find gap. You have to read. You must have something in your mind before you go and read your literature. If you don't have any idea in your mind, you will be reading vastly and you will lose focus. You don't know what you're reading. So I hope I understand this Petri Priyatini, the question from her. Okay. Setelah kita mendapatkan problem, kemudian harus dijustifikasi. Tidak diberi contoh, adakah masalah?
Tadi diberi contohnya, bukan tidak.
Oh, okay. So it's done already, right?
Ya, tadi sudah diberi contoh, Dr. Maga sudah memberi contoh, adalah masalah yang kita hadapi itu dihadapi juga oleh di daerah lain. Juga bisa, sehingga bisa bermanfaat juga untuk penyelesaian kita, untuk orang lain. Namun, kalau misalkan problem yang kita hadapi ini hanya ditemui di lingkungan kita, and didn't find anywhere in some other places, ya, hanya ditemui di lingkungan kita, bagaimana cara kita menjustifikasi atau merasionalisasi supaya pembaca merasa bahwa penelitian kita ini memang penting untuk dilakukan.
Okay, I think I understand the question. Kalau masalah itu tidak ada di tempat lain, tetapi hanya di tempat kamu sendiri.
Ya.
Begitu kan soalan dia?
Ya, gimana Jihan? Ya?
Iya.
Ya, okay. Kalau sebegitu, katakanlah kita pegang pada elektrolisis. Masalah elektrolisis ini hanya dihadapi oleh pelajar di sekolah kamu. Ataupun permasalahan kamu, permasalahan ini tidak dihadapi oleh orang lain. Tidak pernah dikaji. Okay? Tidak pernah dikaji. Katakanlah tidak pernah dikaji. Okay? So what you should do? You should find problems which are closely related. Okay? Problems which are closely related. For example, my research focus is on electrolysis. But then, I cannot find any study on people done on electrolysis. Katakan, tak, ini benda ni tak betul, katakan saja. But then, I find study, people have reported on other chemistry concepts. For example, kinetic particle theory, or atoms, or basic properties of matter. You know, there are something which is very closely connected. So I can justify that, you know, there is no study on electrolysis. However, you know, walau bagaimanapun, terdapat kajian-kajian yang berkaitan dengan konsep kimia yang lain yang menunjukkan pelajar menghadapi masalah. Pelajar menghadapi kesukaran. So oleh itu, permasalahan dalam elektrolisis, oleh itu, kemungkinan untuk permasalahan dalam elektrolisis adalah kukuh. You know, there are possibilities for students to experience lack of understanding in electrolysis because they are already having experience, they are already having lack of knowledge in other chemistry concepts. Dapat tak? You know, so memandangkan there is no specific kajian on electrolysis, kamu kena cari sesuatu yang paling rapat, paling dekat. So yang mana satu paling dekat? Other chemistry concepts. You know, so ada kajian yang menunjukkan pelajar tidak memahami properties of matter ataupun dia tidak memahami teori kinetik. Dia tidak memahami other chemistry concepts that involved in the syllabus. So if If other concepts they do not understand, the possibilities of students for having problem in understanding electrolysis is there. So kamu bagi justifikasi. So that's the only way. So saya bagi contoh electrolysis, but you can go into other contohs also. Like for example, we want to see why students having problem with the behavior, environmental behavior. So literature says attitude is a reason for students not performing good behavior. But then in my own context, I feel like attitude is not a possible reason. There might be some other reason. So nobody have done that research. So I want to go into it. So I use something which is very closely and I try to justify. Okay? Right. I think I answered the question.
Bagaimana Jihan? Apakah sudah terjawab?
Ya, terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So can I continue, Dr. Susi?
Yes, sure, Dr. Mageswary.
Sorry, Ibu.
Ya?
Boleh izin bertanya?
Oh, okay. There's a student have
Hamidah.
one question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the change. Maybe I'm trying to ask in English, but I'm sorry if there is a mistake. Right, in justification, maybe I want to provide the example. I want to develop some learning material or some media, and then this media is to give a teacher some alternative in learning, but another purpose is to improving one of high order thinking skill, so that in justification, can I just provide, or can I just say that this skill is important? Maybe this making decision skill or problem solving skill is important, so that I want to improve that without providing some statistical data about the lower score of that specific skill, or maybe I can provide the statistical data about the lower score of making decision skill or problem solving skill, but I just justify that with this skill is important. Is that okay?
Okay, I think I can answer your question. So now you are saying that you are using a treatment, okay, to improve the higher order thinking skill, but you don't have data or statistical evidence saying that the students or the learners higher order thinking skill is poor. You're saying you don't have a data, but you have a data saying that higher order thinking skill is very important. Correct? Right. Now, in this case, what you can do is you can say probably you might not get data from Indonesia. Let's say you don't have a statistic from Indonesia. You have a statistic from other part of the world. Okay, let's say you are doing a research with 14 years old, 14, umur dia 14 tahun. Okay, so a study done in Malaysia with the lower secondary students shows that these students are having poor higher order thinking ability. So this study is done in Malaysia. The poor higher order thinking ability among Malaysian students is persistent despite the curriculum or the teachers have emphasized higher order thinking in the teaching. So this is the Malaysian context lah. Katakan you get the literature from. But in the case of Indonesia, there is no information on higher order thinking skill of the student. Okay? And teachers are also not, I might be wrong, I'm not sure. So I'm just saying the sentence. The teachers are also not integrating higher order thinking skills in their teaching. Okay, so hence introducing a teaching focusing on higher order thinking skill is necessary to improve Indonesian students' higher order thinking skill. Do you see the justification? Your problem is you're saying that there's no study done among Indonesian students on higher order thinking skill, correct? But you need to justify the teaching approach that you want to introduce on higher order thinking skill is very important. You want to justify that. So what you can do, you can go to the country or other studies done in different part of the world. So saya bagi contoh Malaysia. So let's say you dapat satu kajian. In that kajian itu menunjukkan pelajar sekolah menengah di Malaysia tahap thinking skill, higher order thinking skill mereka adalah rendah. Walaupun cikgu telah menggunakan teknik, cara, strategi, approach yang menekankan higher order thinking skill. Walaupun cikgu gunakan, tetapi dia masih rendah. Dalam kes Indonesia, cikgu tidak lagi menggunakan teknik yang menekankan, yang mementingkan higher order thinking skill. Jadi, hence it's appropriate, it is needed, it is required to introduce a teaching approach that emphasizes higher order thinking skills to improvise Indonesian students' higher order thinking skills. So, kamu ambil kajian lain, you tap on other research and you connect them. Same, like the example, like the earlier student asked me, if nobody have done the research, how can I give justification? You go and find something which is connected, closely connected. So in your case, if Indonesia is not done a study, but there are many other countries have done the study. And from that finding, you see the teaching is so important to improvise the higher order thinking skill. Hence, in your case, you are designing an approach to improve the higher order thinking skill. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mages. Well, actually, we still have one question, but I think we need to go on your slide first, and then we go back for the next question. And then
okay, later. Okay, right. Thank you, Dr. Suzy. I would also share one of my article later with you. So when the student read my PowerPoint, the participants read my PowerPoint, they can use the article as a guide. So they can understand better because the context I have actually taken from that article. So they will be able to understand that. Okay, so later I will share the article with you. Right. Now, so the next one is, I'm going to talk about how to come up with the research objective first, So if you look at research, some studies, they use purpose statements, some studies use research objective. Research purpose is a very general statement, okay, on how or what you're going to do. Compared to research objective is very specific, So you can actually opt either to write research purpose or to write research objective. So here, now I'm going to show you how to write research objective. Now, why objective is important, okay? Now, you will see that the research objective research question and hypothesis will go in parallel. They must match each other. If you realize in your writing, your research objective is something, your research question is something else, your hypothesis is something else, that means something is wrong with your writing. So kurang betul lah. Okay, so all these things must go in parallel. So what is research objective? So research objective is description of what you want to achieve in this study. So if you want to develop a teaching approach to improvise higher order thinking skills, then that is your research objective. So your first research objective will be to develop the higher teaching approach for higher order thinking skill. Your second research objective is to measure whether the approach is effective or not. Okay, so your research problem will narrow to the objective. Okay, from problem you narrow to the objective. So the statement that presents the direction of the study. So it direct, dia menentukan arah penyelidikan. Okay, arah penyelidikan, right? So for quantitative objectives, bila anda menulis objektif, there is certain verbs, perbuatan kata kerja. We call it in bahasa Melayu as kata kerja. There are certain verbs that you need to use. So some of the verbs are to determine, to measure, to evaluate. So these verbs are verbs which are measurable. That means something yang boleh diukur. You know, it should be measurable. If it is measurable, it should be very specific and it should be very narrow. Compared to qualitative, dia adalah sesuatu yang sangat luas, very broad. You know, it is very broad. So if it is very broad, you can't measure. You can see, you can explore, you can observe, but you cannot measure. So I hope you understand the meaning between measurable and something which is non-measurable. Measurable is something very specific. You can actually, okay, quantify this amount. You know, something which is not measurable is something which is very wide. You can only observe, you can explain, you can explore. You cannot quantify that. Okay, so if that's the case, what are the keywords that you can use is to determine, to measure, to evaluate. So these are the key words. Okay, right. Now, compared to the qualitative objective. Qualitative objective, as I said, it's very general, it's broad. You know, we are not we are not here to measure, but we are here to understand how students learn, how the treatment is able to improve students' understanding. How? So, in order for you to understand, you need to explore, tinjau, okay? You need to discover. Kamu kena menemui. You have to discover. Or you need to understand. So you cannot quantify them. You know, this is okay, what is the mean here? 5.6. You cannot quantify the mean in the qualitative. You only can see, okay, there is a color change. There is a change in the answer. The answer just now looks very broad, very general, but after listening to my talk, you might able to write a very specific research problem. So something which you explore, understand. I hope you can differentiate between the quali and quanti objective. Right. So this slide, I just want to go through very fast. You might be able to relate later. So it's related to the problem statement. You cannot write an objective which is not related to problem statement. summarizes what to be achieved. Okay, it gives you a summary what you want to achieve end of the study. Enlighten the way in which the researcher had to proceed. It guides you. Okay, it tells you what you need to do. After this is what, after this is what, after this is what. Focus the study. Development of methodology. It helps you to decide on what kind of methodology. So if it is the moment you write or to measure the effectiveness, I already know it is a quantitative study. The moment you write to understand how the integrated stamp works, I know already it's a qualitative study. Okay, to help to organize the study in different parts, so if your objective is to first to develop, second to measure the effectiveness, so you are dividing. So first you want to develop, I know your first phase of your study is develop, second phase of your study is to measure the effectiveness. And also from the way you write the qualitative, from the way you write the objective statement, I know what kind of data you're going to collect. How are you going to analyze the data? And how are you going to interpret the data? So if you say you're going to measure the effectiveness, I know already you are going to use the experimental design. You are going to compare the mean, pre-test and post-test. And then I know how you're going to interpret the data. You're going to interpret based on the statistical probability values. So these are the why objective is so important. Okay, now before that, I think I'll go into the objective first. Okay, now the objective of a study, a quantitative study. So let's say, for example, the effectiveness of STEM lab activities in improving students' understanding of electrolysis. So this is the same topic or same context I use when I explaining the problem statement just now. So I'm using the same so that you can relate that very well. Now, if this is the context of your study, so you want to see whether your STEM lab is appropriate to improve students' understanding of electrolysis. Okay, so this is what you have mentioned in the problem statement. So what would be your objective? The first objective is to develop STEM lab activities. Before you can measure the effectiveness, you need to have the STEM lab activities correct. So the first objective will be to develop STEM lab activities. The second objective is to measure the effectiveness of STEM lab activities in improving understanding. So once you have prepared the STEM lab activities, then you measure the effectiveness, keberkesanan dia. But then, how are you going to measure? The topic of electrolysis is very wide. So you want to go and see students' understanding of electrolyte and non-electrolyte. Electrolysis of molten substance. Electrolysis of aqueous solution. Electrolysis in industry. See, these are called subscales. Okay, now I hope you are following me. Okay, right. So looking at this title, the variables are STEM lab activities and understanding of electrolysis. Okay, the variables are variables are STEM lab activities and understanding of electrolysis. So now you need to use these variables and translate it into an objective. So how are you going to translate? The first objective is to develop STEM lab activities. The second objective is to measure the effectiveness of STEM lab activities in improving understanding. But this is a very general objective. You need to go more specific in terms of understanding. You have electrolyte and non-electrolyte, electrolysis of molten substance, electrolysis of aqueous solution, electrolysis in industry. Okay, so this is how you translate research problem into the research objective for the quantitative experimental study. Okay, now quantitative not necessarily must be experimental. It also can be the survey, correct? It also can be a survey kind of study. We will look this very detailed in the quantitative section. Now I'm just helping you with the research objective. So example, quantitative survey. Let's say you are doing your research or is the interaction effects between self-efficacy and STEM teaching practices. Okay, the interaction effect between self-efficacy and STEM teaching practices. So how are you going to translate into the objective? To measure the interaction effect between self-efficacy and STEM teaching practices. You see, but this self-efficacy, there are many subscales. There are many subscales. So the first subscale is instructional self-efficacy, classroom management efficacy, engagement efficacy. So instructional efficacy, classroom management, engagement are subscales of self-efficacy. So if you look at this question is an overall question, keseluruhan, very general, objective. This objective is more specific into their subscales. Later I will show you, or maybe not today, the next time, how the data analysis matches with the way you write the research objective. Okay, right. I hope I'm clear. Now I'm going to the qualitative part. Okay, so if you see here, the effectiveness, something you can quantify, you can measure, right? I want to measure whether they can understand or not understand. So understanding I can measure. Then here, interaction, I can measure the interaction effect. What is the interaction between efficacy and practice? I can measure. But this one, unleash the Malaysian teachers' STEM teaching practices. That means I want to discover how teacher practice STEM in school. I want to explore how teachers practice STEM in school. I can't measure. I just want to go and observe. I want to go and interview the teachers. I want to ask them, how do you teach STEM in school? You know, so I want to go to get some info. So unleash the Malaysian STEM teachers. So here, the way I write the objective is to explore Malaysian teachers practicing STEM teaching in the classroom. To discover, you know, so I hope you can see the difference. Here is very structured, very quantified, you know, but here it is very general. So you need to understand these differences first, you know, before there's another approach, mixed method. Later we will go into that. I'm not sure whether I had the time, but the coming session I'll go into the mixed method. But you need to have a very strong grasp on these two, quantity and quality, the way, the differences. Okay, right. Now that is the objective. I hope you already got the objective. Now I'm going into the research question. Now, from the objective, we have to narrow to the research question. Okay, so you will realize that the research question and the objective will match each other. They commensurate to each other. Okay, right. I go to the example first, then maybe I will talk about the variables and construct in the upcoming lecture. Now, you see just now, the objective, hold on. Okay, I go to this one first. the interaction effects between self-efficacy and STEM teaching practices. So just now I stated the objective to measure the interaction between self-efficacy and STEM teaching practices. And then I go into a more specific objective to measure the effects of the 3 subscale. I hope you are following me. Now, how am I going to translate this to the research question? So the research question is there any significant effects of self-efficacy on STEM teaching practices? You will realize this statement and this statement are parallel to each other. But this is the objective statement, but this is the research question. Can you see that? So to measure the effectiveness of instructional effects of instructional. So here, is there any significant difference of instructional strategy efficacy on STEM teaching practices? Difference, it should be on the effects. Okay, so the classroom management also same. It will be very parallel. Okay, now let me see the okay. The STEM laboratory activity. STEM laboratory activity, the same title as I said. When you change to the objective research question, there's 2 ways of writing research question. Is there any significant difference between experimental and control groups overall post-test score? Or is there any significant difference? So this way of writing, we call it directional way of writing the research question. This way of writing, we will call it as non-directional. It's more general. So if you look here, what is the effectiveness of STEM lab activities? So it's more general. What is the effectiveness of STEM lab in improving electrolyte and non-electrolyte, electrolysis of molten substance? You know, it follows the 4 subscale. Boleh faham? Huh? But this one is more directional. So that means I am comparing experimental and control groups overall post electrolysis diagnostic test. So this is the instrument that I use for measuring students' understanding of electrolysis. So comparing the post-test score of the control and experimental. Comparing the post-test electrolysis diagnostic test score for subscales on electrolyte, non-electrolyte, electrolysis of molten substance, electrolysis of aqueous substance, electrolysis in industry. You know, so this is the way to go from objective to the research question. Okay, so I suggest you take it as it is for this lesson. The next lesson, when I go for the quantitative research, I will go more deeper. Okay, I hope I can find time to go more deeper. You know, so what you need to know at this point, the objective can be translated to research question, and this is how we should translate. It should match parallelly. Okay, the next one, this one I have mentioned. Right. For the qualitative part of the study, the title is Unleash Stimulation Teachers' STEM Teaching Practices. Just now I mentioned the objective to explore Malaysian teachers practicing STEM teaching in the classroom. So if you convert this to the what you call that, the research question, it will be how Malaysian teachers practice STEM teaching in schools or in the classroom. So it's directly proportional. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so next will be the hypothesis. So hypothesis is like what is the expected results that you think that you can obtain from the research. Okay, jangkaan. what is the expected result that you think you can achieve from this result, this research. It's not a guess. Bila kita sebut jangkaan, when you say it is expected, you are not guessing. It's not coming from the sky. You're not simply guessing, but you are expecting from the earlier research. You know, you are making this hypothesis statement from the earlier research. The earlier research guides you in making this, this hypothesis. So the hypothesis must be parallel to objective, parallel to research question. Okay, we will see some example. Right, so for example, let's say the effectiveness of STEM lab activities. I mentioned the research question just now. Is there any significant difference between the control and experimental group post-test electrolysis diagnostic test mean score? So the parallel is, there is a significant difference. So I answered the question. You know, I answered the question. There is a significant difference between the experimental and control groups' overall post-test scores. So why I can say there is a significant difference? Because I am guided by the past research. I also can say there is no significant difference. Okay, so one is alternative hypothesis, another one is what do you call that, alternative, I have forgotten the term already. Okay, so there's two ways of writing. Either you say there is significant difference, or there is no significant difference. So why I'm saying this? Because based on my reading of literature. So is there any significant difference between experimental and control group post-test electrolysis score for subscales on electrolyte and non-electrolyte? There is, or there is no. Okay, significant difference between experimental, control group post-test and for the subscales on electrolyte and non-electrolyte, electrolysis and Moulton. So it matches. These are very important because this will be directly parallel with the data analysis data. Okay, right. So you can come up with the hypothesis for the quantitative research because you have these variables, dependent, independent, moderating variables. But for the qualitative research, you don't have any variables there. You are merely exploring. You don't have any direction. So you only can come up with the research objective and research question. You probably would not be able to come up with an hypothesis. So most of the time, qualitative research do not have hypothesis. Okay, primarily only quantitative research will come with hypothesis. This is merely because you already know the variables that you want to investigate. You know what is STEM activities, you know what is understanding, you know the motivation, But if you're just exploring why the students are not understanding, you would not be able to come up with variables, IVDV and so on. So that's the reason why in the qualitative research, there's no hypothesis. Okay, right. I think I have done. Okay, right. So I have spoken on the research objective, research question, and research hypothesis. If you have any question, you can ask. For this week, probably you just get the first-hand understanding. Next week, when I go into quantitative part of the research, you probably will get a more concrete understanding on what I'm saying. can relate better. Okay, Dr. Susie, I'm done. I pass the session to you. Questions you can ask.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Mages. I think we still have like 6 minutes before 12, yeah? Should we go back to the previous question, yeah, Dr. Mages?
Yep, yeah, sure.
I'll read the question. My research is like we analyze the student conception and troublesome knowledge. If I want to make justification and problem statement, is it important to have the previous research like observation or interview or something like that in myself?
Dr. Susie, repeat your question. I couldn't hear you well.
Okay. Yeah. My research is like we analyze the student conception and troublesome knowledge. If I want to make justification and problem statement, is it important to have the previous research like preliminary research, I mean, yeah, like observation or interviewing or something else, and I doing it by myself? How if I don't do that? I just give some previous study or research in my justification as my justification. So if the researchers didn't do the preliminary research by and only using the previous research results, yeah, is it can reduce the importance of my research or not?
Okay. That's why I said, I think this question is similar to the earlier question. If I understand your question very well, you are saying that there is it all right just to solely focus on past studies to justify my problem? Is that so, Dr. Susie?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's why I say, you see, when you write your problem, the problem is you are researching your own context. You are researching your own classroom. The problem emerges in your classroom. You cannot use a justification on a problem that happened in the US, or a justification, a past study where the problem is in UK, or justification on the past study where the problem is in Malaysia. You need to justify the problem is in your context, which is Indonesia, in your classroom, right? So not necessary you need to do a preliminary study. No, that is not necessary. But what you can do is you can actually collect all this past research, which is done in many other countries, and you write in such a way, you give a lot of arguments. You see, in the country, in Malaysia, there is a problem. In the UK, there is a problem. In the US, there is a problem. This also might be a problem in Indonesia. This is because in our curriculum, the understanding is taught like this. So there are possibilities for the problem to occur. So that's how you give justification. Now, if you do a preliminary study, how can you convince the reader that your preliminary study is reliable, is valid? You know, you can do a preliminary study, but you cannot solely dependent on the preliminary study. Your preliminary study must be supported with literature that happened in other part of the world. I hope I answered that question. You know, so your writing is so important. You have literature that happened other part of the study, other part of the world, and you have a small preliminary study. You use them to support each other, and you make your problem concrete. Okay, right.
So hope it's already clear, yeah. Okay, Dr. Mages and all the students as well as our colleagues from UTI. I think we ran out of time for today's meeting, but don't worry that we'll still have an opportunity to learn more from Dr. Mages next week. So if you still have some questions regarding the research question or research problem, justification, and so on, we can also like discuss it a little bit more when we talk about qualitative research method, quantitative research method, as well as mixed method. Yeah, Dr. Mages. Yeah, we also will like discuss about the research problem, research question, and so on a little bit deeper when we discuss about that. Isn't it correct, Dr. Mages?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So if you still have some question, please write down in your notes so you won't be forget about your question and post the question to Dr. Mages next week. Oke, mungkin seperti itu. Bapak Ibu, Dr. Mages, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your all out explanation about the research problem, and also the real example, ya Bu Hernani, ya.
Yes,
The real example of each stages of the in formulating the research problem, yeah. So I hope it will give a more clear insight about how to do that in each stages, yeah. 5 aspect, yeah, Dr. Mages, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Dr. Suzy, I suggest it will be good if the students, they can start writing the problem statement.
Yeah.
So if they want to get my feedback, also can. Maybe, I don't know, if we can find time, we can discuss on the research problem. We can have a session on going through the research problem. I can try to help. And also, Dr. Suzy, I will share you the PowerPoint, which the correct one. I think I made mistake. I shared with you I did some changes, but I think I shared the one without the changes. So I will share with you the one with the changes with the article, so they can read the PowerPoint together with the article, so they will understand better.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mages. Can I share the PowerPoint to the student as well?
Yes, no problem. But don't share the one that I sent to you.
Yes.
I will give you another one.
Oke, thank you very much, Dr. Mages. Ya, mahasiswa semuanya dan Bapak Ibu, Prof Nuryani juga.
Terima kasih sangat Mages, ya.
Sesi dengan Dr. Mages itu akan berlanjut 7 pekan ke depan. Ya, jadi kita masih bisa bertemu.
Setengah 10.
Ya, kita masih bisa bertemu. Untuk sesi kali ini mungkin kita cukupkan sekian, ya Bu Hernani.
Ya.
Terima kasih banyak Dr. Mages, terima kasih banyak Prof Nur dan Bapak Ibu semuanya, juga mahasiswa-mahasiswa yang bersemangat dengan pertanyaan yang sangat